Welcome, good afternoon, Mister. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Honorable Dean of the Faculty of Economics and Business, Gadjah Mada University, Professor Dr. Didi Ahyari, SAMCom, AKCA. Distinguished speakers of IGETCOT 2026, Dr. Lily Yan Ing, SAMSC, Dr. Anung Herlianto, EC, SA AKT, CA, MBA, and Rizky Nauli Siregar, SAMA, PhD. The Director of the Master's Program in Development Economics, FEB UGM, Amirullah Setiahadi, SA Ken Wikon, PhD. The Vice Director of the Master Program in Development Economics, FEB UGM, Dr. Evi Nur Afifah, MSc. Esteemed presenters and participants of IGETCOT 2026, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the International Conference Graduate Student of Economic Development IGETCOT 2026. With this theme, Rethinking Development Economics for a Poly-Crisis World. We are pleased and honorable to hear the three keynote speakers who will share their insight and perspective on development economics in the context of a poly-crisis world in this seminar. We also look forward to an engaging and insightful discussion this afternoon. To officially begin the afternoon session, we will first proceed to singing the Indonesian and national anthem Indonesia Raya, followed by the hymn of UGM. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise.
Indonesia tanah airku, tanah tumpah darahku. Di sanalah aku berdiri, jadi panggung ibuku. Indonesia kebangsaanku, bangsa dan tanah airku. Marilah kita bersatu, Indonesia bersatu. Hiduplah tanahku, hiduplah negeriku, bangsaku, rakyatku semuanya. Bangunlah jiwanya, bangunlah hiduplah Indonesia Raya.
Marga semua ku
berjanji memenuhi panggilan bangsaku di dalam Pancasila-mu. Bagi kami alma mater, ku berjanji setia, ku penuhi dalam hati, untuk ibu berdiri di dalam persatuanmu, jiwa seluruh bangsaku.
Please be seated. Thank you. Now, we will proceed to the welcoming remarks by the Dean of Faculty of Economic Business, Gadjah Mada University. It is great honor to invite Professor Dr. Didi Ahyari, SAMCOM AKCA, to deliver his welcoming remarks. Professor Didi, the time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam.
Distinguished guests, keynote speakers, college, and students, good afternoon and warm welcome to the Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Gadjah Mada. On behalf of the Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Gadjah Mada, I'm honored to welcome you all to the International Graduate Student Conference on Economics Development, or IGETCode 2026. This annual conference has become an important platform for dialogue, knowledge exchange, and collaborations, especially as we navigate the complex challenges and uncertainties of the polycrisis world. This year's theme, Rethinking Development for a Polycrisis World, is very timely as we face complex global challenges from economic shift and climate change to the social inequality. Traditional economic framework are being tested. As future leaders, you have the opportunity to challenge these paradigms and offer fresh, innovative solutions. This conference is a space for brilliant minds to connect and collaborate. Through your discussion and research, I hope we can discover new perspectives to advance development economics. Special appreciation goes to our esteemed who are with us today. Dr. Lilian Ng, Secretary General of the International Economic Associations, Dr. Anung Herlianto, EC, SE Akademia, MBA, Deputy Commissioner Research and Development at the OJK Institute, and Rizky Nauli Sirgar, SAMA, PhD, Vice Director Graduate Program in Economics, Universitas Indonesia, as well as our moderator, Adinda Salsabila Zauzahuda. Thank you for sharing your invaluable expertise and insights with us. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the Master to the Master of Development Economics Student Association, or HIMEP, and all the organizing committee members for their dedications and hard work in making this event possible. To our presenters and participants, thank you for your commitment to excellence and your passion for shaping a better world, better future. Finally, let us embrace this opportunity to learn from one another, to share ideas, and to strengthen collaboration that go beyond this conference. Once again, welcome to ICODE 2026. I wish you all engaging, insightful, and fruitful conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Didi, for the warm welcome and insightful remarks. We truly appreciate the perspective and encouragement that you have shared with us. Ladies and gentlemen, before we move into the main discussion of this afternoon session, I would like to introduce our moderator. Adinda Salsabila Zauza Huda is a student in the Master's Program in Development Economics at FEB UGM. With her concentration is regional economic planning and development. Her particular interest regional economic development. She also had one specific achievement. As the delegate of Indonesia at the Asia Pacific Youth SDG Summit 2023 in South Korea. With her experience and expertise in the economic development field, we are delighted to have Adinda Salsa with us to moderate today's session. We look forward to an engaging and insightful discussion of this afternoon session. Without further ado, I would like to hand over the session to Ms. Salsa. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to International Graduate Student Conference on Economic Development, ICODE 2026. My name is Adinda Salsabila, and it's my pleasure to be your moderator for today's sessions. Let me begin with a simple question. How many of you believe that the world has become far from unpredictable than it was just 5 years ago? If you are agreeing, may I invite you to raise your hand? Thank you. It is clear that we share the same perceptions. Today's world is no longer defined by a single crisis, but also by multiple interconnected challenges, from climate change, fiscal and social inequalities. This is why this year's conference embraced the theme, Rethinking Development Economics for a Poly-Crisis World. Today, we are honored to be joined by distinguished speakers who will share their insight on how development economics can remain resilient, inclusive, and adaptive, addressing these complex global challenges. Without further ado, let us begin the International Graduate Student Conference on Economic Development, ICODE 2026. To introduce our three distinguished speakers. Our first speaker is Dr. Anang Herlianto, SA AKPCA MBA. He currently serves as the Deputy Commissioner for Research and Development. Previously, he served as the head of OJK, Deputy Commissioner for Private Bank Supervisions, and Executive Director and Head of the Department of Banking Regulation and Development at OJK. Prior to his career, Dr. Anang spent more than 20 years at the Bank Indonesia. His professional experience also extends internationally. In 2010, he was assigned to the Australian Prudential Regulation Authority, or APRA, in Sydney. From his academic background, Anang from the Faculty of Economic and Business, Universitas Gadjah Mada, an MBA from the University of Bristol with a doctoral from Universitas. Now, let us move on to our second distinguished speakers. Our second speaker is Dr. Rizky Nauli Siregar, an assistant professor at the Department of Economics, Universitas Indonesia. She's also currently serves as the vice director of the graduate program in economics at Universitas Indonesia. Dr. Rizky received his PhD in economics from University of California, following his master's degree in economics from Boston University and bachelor degree in economics from Universitas Indonesia. Next, we will move on into the third speakers. Our third speaker is Dr. Lily Yan Ing, the Secretary General of the International Economic Associations, a globally recognized institution dedicated to advancing economic thought and addressing present global challenges. Dr. Lee is also a distinguished fellow of the International Sustainability Development Solution Network, contributing to development of sustainable economic solutions and strategy to the global level. From 2012 to 2026, Dr. Lee served as lead advisor for the Southeast Asia regions at the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia. Dr. Lily's extensive experience also includes serving as the lead advisor to the Minister of Trade of the Republic of Indonesia 2017 till 2016. Please join me in welcoming our three distinguished speakers, Dr. Lily Yan Ing, Dr. Rizky Nauli Siregar, and Dr. Anung Herlianto to the stage.
Okay, check. Good afternoon, Dr. Lily, Dr. Rizky, and Dr. Anu. Welcome to Yogyakarta. It is a pleasure to have all three of you with us today, and we are very excited to hear your perspective on development economics in an immensely complex world. And now, in a very short moment, start the presentations from our speakers. Each of the speakers will have 30 minutes to deliver their presentations, followed by a question and answer session. So I encourage to all the participants to take notes and engage actively by preparing your questions for the discussions. Without further ado, let us begin our first presentations. I now invite Dr. Anung as our first speaker. The stage is yours, Dr. Anung.
Okay, great. It's been 40 years since I left this university. And now, today is my classmate, just over there, gathering for reunion, celebrating 40 years, after, leaving this university. But, after listening, I still, last time probably, I sang that song, The Hymn, in Gajah Mada, is probably at the same period 40 years ago. But I'm still, feel. There are only two hymns that, whenever I sing that song, my blood is like boiling, Pak. Yang pertama is UGM hymn, yeah. And the second is OJK. Oh yeah. Even though 20 years in Bank Indonesia, I never had that. But the same feeling. No, different feeling. OJK. Nanti teman. How many of you is an international student? Only you? Only yourself? But I believe you speak Indonesia, right? Still? Okay. Jadi saya harus bicara bahasa Indonesia harusnya ya. Okay, please, the slide, please. Okay, great. Thanks for the invitations, Pak Amir Bevi, yeah, and also colleagues from the graduate student in the master degree in economic development. This is my title, Living in the Newer Disorder. Yeah, this is becoming a new normal. New normal is a disorder, yeah, in disorder word. And we try to navigate the global headwinds. Yeah, so Indonesia's final sector assessment and the outlook. Next. And this is more of the agenda, the what disorder, what the was trigger. I have to speak, the ecosystem that trigger the geopolitical volatility and the impact of global geopolitical volatility in the world economy and also the Indonesia. I gave you an update, and the paradox is becoming the for you to trigger the discussion. Okay, next. Okay, geopolitical instability. Now globalization's free trade and the WTO is almost over. And now we are going to the fragmentation, nationalisms, yeah, and weaponizing of economy. That I think this is the, the very effective weapon to make one nations go into bankrupt or go into suffer. Yeah. So what trade in transition, and we can say that global failure, big failure on the WTO era is over, marked by the stagnation and its share of global GDP for those that the member of WTO. And now the shift from globalization into what we call it fragmentations. Yeah, means the world is moving away from one giant big market and shift into the what we call it, breaking apart into smaller rival trading groups in regions. So from globalizations into localizations. Padahal lokalisasi di Indonesia dilarang itu ya. Nah, so they make alliance from the closer neighbor, closer nations, what we call it friendshoring, rather than about cheapest price through free trade. So friendshoring redirect trade based on alliance moving away from free trade regime. So connect countries rising and new trade routes are emerging, but major power like the US and China still there and remain deeply interdependent. Yeah. Okay, next slide. So basically, the global conflict and wars escalate in 2026 and across the globe. But in terms of scale, they only very local, so it doesn't big impact to the global one. But the first one, when the Russia attacked Ukraine, one of the big, the hit hardest is Indonesia because 26% of the flour, gandum, come from the Ukraine. Yeah, but it's over. There are so many alternatives to buy flour from Ukraine rather than from Ukraine. But when US attack Iran, that's become very, very, very critical for three reasons at least. So erosion of global rules. So traditional international norms are deterrents fall as major power prioritize short-term strategic dominance over the collective stability. Trump's only 4 years, but Prabowo probably 5 years. So the same as other head of the countries. So what they chase is very short-term. Yeah, as long as they can leave the legacy, including the war. Yeah, and then the transactional alliances. Yeah, foreign policy relies less on long-term collective security agreement and more on immediate aggressive national and economic self-interest rather than thinking about global wealth. And the last one that is very important is a geoeconomic warfare. So nation weaponize trade routes, energy supplies, and tariff like Trump do, yeah, such as disruption around the Strait Hormuz. Yeah, this turning a friction into kinetic military conflict that then impact across the globe. Okay, next. Now, but the war's trigger, as I mentioned before, that war in Middle East after US Israel strike on Iran, 28th of February. yeah, on the Epic Fury operations that the Trump call it. So the war in the Middle East is a major trigger for global tension because the regions hold vital oil supplies. Yeah, control critical shipping lanes and hold deep religious and political importance that draws the global superpowers. And then the next slide, why the Strait Hormuz is so important. Next slide, please. Yeah, the war caused the disruption to ship traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. You can see just before the US attack at the other side, very dense traffic in this Strait Hormuz and shipping oil and LNG across the globe. But after the attack, the narrow strait, only 33 kilometers, yeah, from here to Klaten, I think, that the width of the strait, you know, but you know, full of the ship over there, the very big tanker over there, but then suddenly stop. So what about the supply energy across the globe? This is very sudden. So none of the countries were probably prepared about it. So the Strait Hormuz is crucial passage for oil and gas transport. And then let's see the data. Next slide, please. So Strait Hormuz, that very narrow strait, but it's very vital. So connect oil and LNG production in the Middle East to the global market via the Arabian Sea in the Indian Ocean. 30% of global seaborne oil trade, 20% of global LNG trade, and 20.3 million barrels every day, yeah, and 219 million cubic. But 80% of LNG passing through the strait goes to Asia. So Asian countries should be the hit hardest by these problems, this conflict, and 20% only to Europe. Okay, next. But we often escape our attention is that the Middle East is the world's largest fertilizer producer. Supplying countries such as Indonesia, and then countries in Southeast Asia, and also India. So the problem then, yeah, the inflations of the commodity, because now fertilizer price is also high. And then the region also serves as a production hub for high quality aluminum, a raw material used in commercial and military aircraft. Kalau tidak salah in Bahrain or what's it, the smaller country, Bahrain, yeah. So United States being the largest consumer. So consequently, the United States has the significant stake in this region as well. So not only the underlying attack is a nuclear weapon that developed by the Iran, but more than that, there is some political economic motive over there. Yeah? And you can see in the data that the closure of Strait Hormuz severely disrupt global energy distribution, particularly in Asian nation. And approximately 84% of the oil and 83% of the LNG passing through the Strait Hormuz are destined to Asian market. But this is very, very important. You got to know whether the underlying attack is also to kill the China. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, because 45% of China's imported oil pass through the Strait of Hormuz, making China a major buyer in the Middle Eastern oil. But why China doesn't react? Yeah, because the reserve of China enough for about a year. But if this conflict prolong, probably China will, step into that conflict. Okay, next. Now, the impact of a global geopolitical volatility in the world economy. Next slide, please. At least there are 5 ways to conflict. The conflict could shock the global economy. The first one will, of course, the oil price will be short. The disruption of Strait of Hormuz could cause immediate sharp price increase affecting the oil energy costs. We can feel it now. Yeah, except the subsidized BBM. Yeah, Pertalite and solar. And then shipping and trade disruption. And this triggered the global inflation rise, higher transport and manufacturing costs, transfer inflationary pressure, cost push, inflation, cost push, yeah, and challenges central bank rate strategies to increase. And then the aviation route impact, insurance costs, and then fuel costs, And at the end, the terminate of the problem is into the financial market volatility. Investors start worrying to emerging market, capital fleeing out there to safe haven countries, and put pressure on the foreign exchange groups. Yeah, tukar and then very volatile, but very fortunate that on Friday back to the 17,600. But I think this is like a yo-yo. Yeah, and then they hit again. So every time the volatility is very frequent, then Indonesia there is no, keuntungan sama sekali because we got a double hit from the capital gain and foreign exchange volatility. What is the impact then in number? Next slide, please. Yeah, IMF, World Bank, and OECD revised down the 2026 global growth, from 3%, at least 2 to 3% now. And core inflation increasing. Well, of course, that can be calculated for the inflation. The impact, the price. I was in the UK, 1999, and 20 years the price relatively stable. Everything's still the same. But only in the last 5 years, the inflation, everything's become much more expensive. Yeah, in the euro era. Next slide. This is put pressure on the Bank Indonesia policy. I will discuss it later. That BI rate now probably the highest among our trading partner, 5.75%. Nothing Bank Indonesia can do. But very fortunate juga ya, because of the conflict and then the commodity price like coal, wheat, soybean, nickel that Indonesia reached on that subsidized or setting off the price of the oil. Next. But there is a good news, optimism from the OECD interim economic outlook in March 2026 and the peak of impact of the conflict. In its interim economic outlook, titled Testing Resilience, the OECD stated that the global economy remained resilient, despite being tested by geopolitical tension and rising energy prices. So global GDP is under pressure, projected only 2.9%, but driven by conflict in the Middle East before rising to 3% in 2027. But key risks include inflationary pressure, driving rising energy price, supply chain disruption, and the need to accelerate the energy transportation. Indonesia growth is projected in contract as the inflation also rise. But fertilizer become one of the factor. Next. Okay, and then what is the impact for the Indonesia? Ladies and gentlemen, next. So looking at how geopolitical volatility in the Middle East, specifically involving Iran, directly impacts Indonesia macroeconomic landscape. In the point 1, you can see that while Indonesia is geographically distant, but in the world of stimulus, the economic transmission channel are immediate. The primary trigger is oil. So the global market pricing is in supply risk because our state budget assumption, the price set in $70 per barrel, while the actual is above that, probably 100 more, plus. This creates multi-layered challenge. It's pressure our currency and test the fiscal limit. And the point 2, to understand exactly how severe the pressure is, let's dive into the state budget number in point 2. The most critical of vulnerability for Indonesia during any global oil shock is our state budget in the APBN. You can imagine that any $1 increase in crude oil price, the subsidized, because the government still, hold at the same price for subsidized BBM, Pertalite, solar, dan seterusnya. And that resulted 10.3 trillion to unbudgeted energy subsidized for compensation. Yeah. And then in point three, this fiscal strain doesn't happen in vacuum. It directly fit into the foreign sentiment and currency market. As the global risk escalate, we see immediate ripple effect across Indonesia financial sector and the rupiah. Rupiah under pressure, capital, and then goes into the safe haven in US dollar and asset denominated in US dollar. And they start, they put pressure on the foreign exchange of rupiah. Okay, and then the weaker rupiah is an expensive oil combined to create secondary problem domestic inflation, which we will examine in a point 4. Yeah, it's in point 4. So we track through the 3 specific pillars. The first, logistic. Higher fuel costs are driving up domestic road and sea freight by 7% to 12%, yeah, which quickly increased the sales price of goods. And then the second, yeah, the transmission through the agriculture, because global supply disruption mean higher costs for imported commodity sector and also fertilizer. Yeah. In summary, while our commodity export gave us temporary buffer, the broader economy requires defensive corporate planning and careful fiscal navigations. Okay, next. But we fortunate, yeah, but even though everybody doubt whether this number is accurate or not, probably including the economists here in UGM and the other economists that is still waras gitu. Sorry nih Pak Mariana. But Indonesia economy, yeah, at least this is to entertain ourselves that Indonesia economy grew by 5.29% year on year in Q2 2026. And Indonesia economy grew by 5.45% in the first semester 2026. I'm not sure whether Ibu Lili or Ibu Rizky feel the same, sense of number. Yeah, we talk about the sense of number. Yeah. In the second quarter 2026, Jawa, Bali, Nusa Tenggara, and Sulawesi region recorded growth rate exceeding the national economic growth rates. Yeah, Bali is full of tourists. Yeah, some of them will enjoy Bali, but most of them is to escape from the heat. Yeah, in Europe. Cari tempat lebih dingin. Okay, next slide. So the pattern the same in terms of economic growth. Yeah, whether this is for the advanced economies or emerging economies. So they are all down, put pressure under pressure in 2026. But they predict with the assumption that the conflict in Iran or the rest of the world will be, calming down and then pick up in 2027. Yeah, both in global economic growth and also in global inflation, hopefully. Yeah, but look at that number in the bottom. Yeah, this is the economic growth of Indonesia major trading partner, which is very unfortunate. The economies of several Indonesia's key trading partners are still growing positively. Indonesia left behind in that. Singapore, very small countries that always say sell Indonesia. Yeah? And then who trigger the quote sell Singapore? That every Indonesian happy. We fight back for Singapore. Singapore, because they already hold rupiah. Yeah, and then they, melempar isu sell Singapore, so that rupiah menguat, strengthen, and then they sell back. So who fool on that? Yeah. So Malaysia, Amerika Serikat, yeah, Malaysia also 5.8%. Vietnam still maintain the high growth in 8.4%. Yeah. Vietnam seperti zaman Pak Harto pada saat itu. Okay, and then next. This is also about the number S&P Global Rating affirmed So they put back from the negative outlook into the stable outlook, yeah, with expectations that this rating reflecting an expectation that fiscal and external pressure will be gradually eased as revenue collection strengthens, commodity price improve, and policy implementations becomes more effective. Dan antara sumber daya Indonesia is it's become a hope factor that probably will minimize the transfer pricing so that the revenue of our state budget will be higher than that. Downside trigger is net general government debt still above the 3%, general government interest payment 15%, and export performance. Remind me about the time, moderator. Otherwise, I have 100 slide for this. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Which one? Oh, still 7 minutes. Okay. Upside trigger. Okay. Next. This is a good headline to calming down, our busy mind. Yeah. Di kembali tahan suku bunga, market review, harga minyak siap membara, rupiah dibuka menguat. Yeah, this is a good news. And on Friday, 17,600, that's around that. This is from IDX channel. And then based on the result of the next slide, Bank Indonesia Board of Governors meeting held on August, on Thursday and Friday, if I'm not wrong. Oh, Wednesday. Bank Indonesia decided to maintain the policy rate. Still had the highest in Southeast Asia, period 5.75% unchanged. It's been held for 2 consecutive months, and deposit facility for 75% and so on. The projection economic growth, be smart. Look at the range of the economic growth projection, 4.9 to 5.7. Yeah, it's very wide target. So whatever the number, within that range, so P achieve the target. Okay, next slide. This is the pattern that BI rate policy is ahead of the Fed rate, but the pattern is following the Federal Reserve Fed fund rate. Yeah, inflation is keeping low at 2.88%. The next, capital market reforms action plan. This is very hot issues with the MSCI issue. Probably some of you, about the noise of the MSCI. Yeah, but we try to fulfill their expectations. Next slide. Yeah. So yes, OJK would like to fulfill what the stakeholder expectations because they have the power to coloring our capital market. So OJK initiative to promote capital market deepening outlined in the roadmap. We have a capital market roadmap. Yeah, but the most important thing is pillar 1, acceleration the market, accelerating market deepening through product variation and aviation financial sector services, which include developing market maker or liquidity provider in the stock market by extending the free float limit from 7% into 15%, simplifying business process, etc. But the next slide, this is our action plan from the MSCI issue. The minimum free float requirement for listed companies is being raised to 15%, up from 70.5%, and implemented in stages. US doesn't have any free float limit, and so the UK. But this issue has been long. It's been around for many decades. But why the issue is becoming the big issue now? And then strengthening the role of domestic institutional investor, and then enhance transparency. Yeah, this is about the ultimate beneficial owners, because MSCI suspect that even though free float only 7%, but all related parties is still, the whole, which consider public investor is actually still connected into the beneficiary owner. And then demutualization, because now SRO like PE, they're owned by the member of the Bursa player. We would like to create more independent wasit, in the capital market. It is independent from the player. And then strengthening the enforcement and regulation and sanction. Yeah. But when we put hard sanctions into the player, then who is the player? They are sometimes more powerful than the regulator. Yeah. But this is only in this room, ya. Kalau yang bocorin pasti Pak Amir. Integrated market deepening, and then strengthening sustainable collaboration with all stakeholders. Yeah. Okay, next. And this is what we have done. Yeah, publications. This is to respond the issue, not necessarily MSCI, but the stakeholder that we will report significant progress in resolving concerns raised by stakeholders, including global index providers. We do not necessarily mention MSCI. Further enhancing transparency and aligning our domestic market. So publication of shareholders' names with above 1% ownership. Now, if you buy a stock and which is considered more than 1%, and then your name will be listed in our, investor list. Yeah, this is done in 3 March. So more granular investor classification from 9 types of investor, now detailed into 49 types, done in April, raising a minimum free float threshold from 7.5 to 15%. Then reporting the ultimate beneficial owner. Yeah, this is not easy, but at least we have a regulation on that. Next. This is the picture of financial service outlook. But yet, yes, banking deposit are still growing. A loan expansion, banks start, giving loan. The growth is amazing, 12%, bank lending, 10 to 12% year on year. It's targeted. Yeah, some of the additional loan come from the KDMP and SPPG. Okay, Bank Himbara suffer on that. Yeah, insurance asset, etc. This is nice to know for you, and the rest is very heavy on the informations. And okay, next slide. Yeah, we try to strengthen our capital in financial sector. So banking industry from minimum 3 trillion rupees will be increased into 6 trillion. This is to buffer against the unexpected volatility. So bank has the capability to absorb more risk, the unexpected risk. Insurance industry is the same under the PSAK 117 ya, 117 atau IFRS 17. Yeah. And then peer-to-peer lending, even though this is a sunset business, fintech marak during the COVID, but now they all it is easy to make fintech lending collapse, terutama yang ilegal, and then you start book loan to the fintech ilegal dan jangan bayar gitu. Itu speed up the bankruptcy of the illegal peer-to-peer lending. But for the legal peer-to-peer lending, please, penuhi tagihannya, because if not, then your name will be on the blacklist in our system. And then ada Undang-Undang P2SK or Financial Sector Omnibus Law. Next. Yeah. Beda, addressing illegal. Oh yeah, illegal financing. Ya, ini marak sekali teman-teman sekalian. Ya, scammers. Complaints 22,000 dan Indonesia Anti-Scam Center itu number of complaints atau pengaduan reach more than 500,000 complaint. we have to handle it. So total report received like 600,000 reported account, 1 million block account. Yeah, we have been blocked 500,000. When I was in banking supervision, so I blocked like 26,000 account. When there's account block, none of them complain to the OJK. This is confirmed that those account has become a vehicle for the judo. Yeah, it's a mule account. Be careful for your KTP identity because irresponsible person will use that. Yeah. Time's over. I leave the rest of the next. And then next, oh yeah, there's one slide more. Terus saja. Wrap up. Next. There is a paradox. Yes. This is to trigger discussion. One more slide. Yeah. Do you feel as the economist? Yeah, you are now the economist. You are all economists. Is there any fiscal fatigue in our state budget? You have to respond. If you look at the debt to the GDP, the increase over time. So how much is it now? And then primary balance, negative. Means that government's revenue, government's spending is outnumbered the revenue. What happened? The government can do. Gempa and the government asks for donations. Well, and then tax ratio 3% is very good, even though the government will say everybody to pay the taxes. But mandatory spending now 70%. What the government can do with the rest of the budget 70%. And capital spending 40%. SBN Jatuh Tempo every year until next year, every year we have to pay up 800 billion. That everything has to be covered for 5%. Where's the money come from? Then 720, and lebih dari separuh penduduk tergolong aspire middle class means that everybody here have a job, but very volatile for the unexpected. It's like a sandwich generation. You have to sufficient, make yourself sufficient. On the other hand, you cover the all necessary aspire. And declining manufacturing sector. Apakah benar tidak terjadi di industrialization as the and then from the capital market there is paradox. The Jakarta Composite Index hit all-time high, yet was subjected to an MSCI increase. Why 3 times all-time high some of Jakarta Composite Index atau the highest but suddenly the MSCI. And then economic growth stood at 5.39% in Q4 2025 and 5.61 in Q1 26. Yet Moody's, which ended with other. That's all the key questions. Various macroeconomic indicators are positive, but at micro level, really is not like that. Next. This is our summary. And the last slide is one of the most slides I really waited for it. Nice. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ano, for your insightful presentation. Okay, now, if I may briefly highlight some key takeaways from Dr. Ano's presentation is that geopolitical risks are no longer distant threats. They directly impact domestic economic stability from energy supply vulnerabilities in the Strait of Hormuz to shifting global trade routes. External shock hit home quickly. Indonesia's defense lies in combining strong policy, power from the central bank and OJK, bold domestic reforms that protect both our fiscal health and consumer well-being. Let us once again give a round of applause to Dr. Ano. And now, we move on to our second speaker. Our next speaker is okay. Okay. Okay, so let's move on to our second speakers is Dr. Lily Yanin. So Dr. Lily, the stage is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon, everyone. It's really a pleasure to always be back home at Gajah Mada University that I very proudly call it home. And it's really such an honor to have discussions with all of you, my professors, my mentors, and with all of you, the brightest and the best of Indonesian scholars, and also some of you coming from overseas. Thank you so much for having me. Before I start, let me share with you two simple observations. First, the global economy has increased 35 times from 3.4 trillion US dollar in 1970 to 118 trillion US dollar in 2025. Much of the growth has been contributed by openness in trade and investments. Looking ahead, the growth will be determined by digital and AI capabilities. The second observation is that it took 75 years for telephone to get 100 million users, but it took only 2 months for ChatGPT to get the same milestones. Currently, ChatGPT has 1.8 billion monthly users. Tuobao, the Chinese applications, has 1.3 billion monthly users. AI and generative AI have been absorbed by 50% of global populations. So the core competitiveness in the 50 years and beyond will be determined by AI and digital capabilities. Okay, with this background, let's discuss Indonesia in the new global economic order and what should Indonesia do. It is the imperative for Indonesia to have the strategic shift. Next, let's discuss about the global economic transformations over the last 50 years. Next, advanced countries that used to have economic power and economic governance have to relinquish their power to emerging economies in 4 key economic metrics: gross domestic products, trade, manufacturing value added, and foreign direct investments. Here, I show you one of the simple illustrations in the manufacturing value added. The left-hand side is the graph that's showing countries that have experiencing declining trends in the manufacturing value added. Those countries, basically advanced countries, the US, Germany, Japan. And the right-hand side is countries that have been experiencing increasing share of manufacturing value added. The blue line at the left-hand side represents the US. China is an exception. China represented by the red line. I put China at the left-hand side because the share of China is now in par with other developed countries. Okay, so countries that have experienced declining shares, basically the US, Germany, Japan, Italy, French, and countries that have increasing share in manufacturing value added, basically led by China, South Korea, Indonesia, and other emerging countries. This is one of the illustrations. Again, this kind of trends happens in gross domestic products, trade, as well as foreign direct investments. Next. So this kind of rising of the declining trend, declining share of the countries, of the developed countries, relinquish their power to emerging countries, creates tensions. Okay? And these tensions, starting from the US-China trade tensions, from trade to technology, national securities, and other areas, as well as the US-China trade tensions and the US friendshoring versus China dual strategy, again, now up to a really hot war when the US and Israel against Iran, as well as the US captivate Venezuela presidents of Maduro. This kind of tensions also came along accompanied by increasings in anti-globalizations, starting from trade coalitions, rising protectionist measures, as well as moving from the cost efficient from the cost efficient value chains to more allied value chains. Next, this resulted in the lower global economic growth. Currently, the global economic growth is estimated 2.7% and will be 2.8% next year. With something we need to keep in mind is that the economic growth is accompanied by lower purchasing power as well as lower real wages. That's why many of us, we can only afford less of goods these days. Next, in the case of ASEAN, ASEAN is estimated to grow 4.7% this year, 4.8% next year. Officially, Indonesia is estimated to grow at 4.8%. My own estimations is 3.8% to 4.3%. LPM of University of Indonesia is also about 4.8%. It can't be more than 5%. Next. Next, let's see of Indonesia's economy, whether I think that what happens in Indonesia right now, it's only for Indonesia case, but also the concerns is also applies for the majority of developing countries as well as least developing countries. Is Indonesia structurally stagnant? Next. Now let's discuss with the macroeconomic. I think it's very important for us to shift talking from the level of economic growth more the substance on the quality of growth. How much actually the growth, how is the growth is translated into poverty reductions, job creations, and affordability. Okay, so let's forget about 8.6 because it's just the number. And the number, it really depends on how much the government has the power to control the number. But we should take into the reality how much the economic growth can be translated into people welfare. So if we see the key signals, it always says that, well, Indonesia, based on purchasing power parity, is going to be on the top of 7 globally. We have PPP income per capita of 17,000 USD, but the structural concerns is that the growth persistence without acceleration. So if we see Indonesia's economic growth, it's around 5% over the last 25 years. China, South Korea, Vietnam, Japan, when they pick its economic growth, Japan recorded more than, it's always double digit. Japan recorded 13% in 1950s, 1960s. South Korea's followed in 1970s, 1980s, and China in 1990s. They always recorded economic growth of double digit as well as significant poverty reductions and job creations. So this is very important for us to highlight the costly populist programs that gonna absorb significant amount of government expenditures which are very unnecessary, and that's gonna cut a lot of the allocations for your educations, your welfare in the future. Next. For the next three slide, let's highlight on the fiscal, trade, and investments, which are three key components in the macroeconomic as well as microeconomics. From fiscal point of view, it's very important for the government to shift its mindset from spending to strategic allocations. As we all know, like, okay, debt and GDP is still around 40%, but we're gonna experiencing rising interest rates. And the structural concerns is that the tax ratio remains 10 to 11%. We are not rich country, so we should be mindful of our spending. And we also need to ensure that the transfers to the regions as well as the energy subsidy structure. And I also would like to highlight on the importance of the central bank's independence as well as other institutions that have to be independent. Next, in terms of trade, let's us take a look on the data. Back to the early days of Indonesia developments in 1960, 9 out of the top 10 Indonesia's key exported products are resource-intensive products. But now, after 81 years of Indonesia independence, still 60% of our key exported products are dominated by natural resource-intensive products, which are mainly relying on two key products, coal, palm, and their derivatives products. So this is very important for us. How can we improve our value added? And the key here is that the key questions is that whether we are experiencing premature deindustrializations and whether the downstreaming really has multiplier effects to the Indonesian's economy, whether it's really increased Indonesia's value added. Okay, next. The next key issue is on investments. I think it's very important for us to move the mindset, not only talking about capital, but how can we translate capital into productivity gains. And again, let me highlight with you. If we see the ratio of foreign direct investments to GDP over the last 25 years, it always remains at 1.5% to 2.5%. With this kind of huge potential market economies of scales, the ratio of GDP to ratio of FDI to GDP remains stagnant. So this is something that we need to keep in mind, what's really going on with Indonesia investments environment. And also, I would like to highlight in the sense of the I-Core, the incremental capital output ratio, Indonesia has been stagnant at 6%, while other countries such as Singapore, Vietnam, as around 3 to 3.5%. The higher number of the I-Core, the more inefficient a country is. So if Indonesia has higher I-Core compared to our peer, there will be likelihood that potential investor will consider other countries than Indonesia. And this is strongly related to regulations, logistic infrastructures, and the overall investments environment in Indonesia. Again, I would like to highlight here is that there are structural concerns, particularly these days, where Indonesia is gonna heading to. The dominant of state-owned enterprises, and currently we have Danantara, this really kind of restrictions to the private sector's dynamisms, and it will gonna affect the job creations. Next. So I would like to highlight one thing here on foreign direct investments to GDP ratio. I put highlight on Indonesia. If we see for the last 2 years, the ratio of foreign direct investments to GDP has been declining from 1.93%, now is only 1.6%. Vietnam has 4.3%, Singapore even has 35%. So what's really going on in Indonesia? Next. So what will be next? The way forward is that I think it is the imperative for Indonesia for a strategic shift. Next. Basically, this is a summing up of the seven urgent priorities. I don't know if you ever heard Tujuh Desakan Darurat Ekonomi. Have you ever signed it? Are you part of the petitions? If not, please take a look and be part of this movement, in the sense like we want to have Indonesia a much brighter future. We, our generations, we have responsibility to you, the next generations, and you, next generations, have responsibility for your future. So the key highlight is that, let me wrap up in the 7 key issues. One is that strategic allocations. Makanan bergizi gratis or free lunch programs will be limited to targeted beneficiaries, those who are really in need. It's just 4% of the 82 million students. So basically, the government should just focus on the 3 million students in the lowest income per capita areas, and the maximum allocations will only 8 trillion Indonesia's rupiah a year. And those allocations should be reallocated to more productive sectors and spending, such as education, infrastructure, as well as health. Second, to increase the purchasing power, I think it's very important for Indonesia to have comprehensive tax reforms. 0% for those who earn less than 100 million Indonesia's rupiah yearly, set the value-added tax 8%, as well as to implement progressive tariff rates for tax. The third one is fair competitions for quality jobs. I think it's very important for us to ensure the constructive competitions to ensure that we will be able to create good quality jobs. I always ask our economist colleagues, students, to think about opportunity costs. Okay, let's think about opportunity costs. If the government has an argument of, okay, free lunch program, Koperasi Daerah Merah Putih, they're gonna create 1 million jobs. But think about, what are the opportunity costs? What are the missing opportunity? If those money is allocated to more productive product for your education, for your health, what will be the impact? Okay, so always think about the opportunity cost, not only for you, but also for the overall society. And it's very important for us to have kind of constructive environment. The fourth one is to enhance the quality of economic growth by strengthening human capital. As I mentioned in the beginning, the core economic growth will be determined by digital technologies and AI. I think it's very important for us to invest a lot in human capital, digital infrastructure, as well as the capability for AI and digital innovations. The fifth one is to ensure the independence of core economic and legal institutions, including Central Bank, OJK, the Attorney General's Supreme Court, as well as the Constitutional Court. The sixth one is diversifications. I think the current geopolitical tensions really kind of a wake-up call for all countries, not relying on one or two major power countries. And it's time for us to intensify diversifications in trade in goods, trade in services, investments, as well as improving the use of local currency and the payment systems. The last one is to accelerate the green energy transitions. Indonesia has so many potentials in solar and hydro. At the end of the day, digital technology and AI will rely on two things. One is on human capital. The second one is on energy supply. And we cannot just rely on fossil fuel energy. It's really time for Indonesia to move towards to not only Indonesia, I also always advocate ASEAN counterparts as well as other developing countries to move towards renewable energy. It is not an option, it is a must. Next, I just would like to highlight here, this is my latest books with Danny Roderick on the new global economic order. As a part of my dedications to improve human capital and improve knowledge, all of my books are publicly available, free access. So please feel free to share it with your students, with your networks. And let me end here. If you have any difficult questions, please give it to other panelists here. I will only take the easy ones. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Lily, for your insightful presentations. Okay, so let me briefly what we have heard from Dr. Lily presentations today. Turning to our internal structures realities, breaking out long-term economic stagnations requires addressing core domestic weakness. Sustained growth cannot be achieved without both fiscal and tax reforms. Revitalizing the manufacturing sector, reducing state dominate to encourage private investment, and strengthen institutional governance alongside human capital. Let us once again give a warm round of applause to Dr. Lily. Okay, so now let us continue with our third and final speakers for today. We are very excited to hear your insights. So without further ado, Ms. Rizky, please take the stage. The floor is yours.
I'll just do the quick. Yang mana? Terus? Oke, got it. Kemana arahinnya? Oh, thank you. Oke, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. It's always nice to come back to Jogja and to visit UGM. I think throughout my career coming back to Indonesia, I try to come at least twice every semester. So I'm not a UGM graduate just like Ibu Lily and Pa Anu, but and also not the part of Australia Mafia, but I'm proud to be friends of UGM and friends of Australia Mafia. So I thank you so much, Dr. Anu and Dr. Lily, for a very comprehensive kind of like depiction and narration of the state of the world. So I'm going to maybe cover a little bit of it, but not going to go deep anymore. And I think I'll just start from one question here. I was thinking today when, actually yesterday when I came to Jogja, I asked my liaison officer, what should I talk about? Like, poly crisis, which part of it that you would like me to talk? And then knowing that Mbak Lily is actually my senior, we share kind of the same research interest. Like, she's already the expert. Why should I go? But then I got her slides, and I think, okay, I'm going to add a little bit more. But this morning, I was really thinking about what should I talk in this time of, a very challenging time. And I don't know whether you follow this this narration led by Pak Khotib Basri. He said, like, I think recently that Indonesia is a country of disappointment because it will disappoint not only the optimists but also the pessimists. Those that is optimists will be disappointed because we're strong enough. Those that is pessimists will be disappointed also because we're not as as good as people ask. So I think everyone asks to many economists. Maybe some of your mungkin neneknya, tetangganya, teman-temannya, everyone asks you, what should I do in this economy? Ya enggak? Ya nggak sih teman-temannya pada nanya ini which saham yang mesti dibeli, should I keep SBN aja atau apa, right? Atau enggak pegang cash aja atau beli emas, ya nggak? Pasti banyak yang nanya kan. But many ask like, are we going to crisis? Banyak nggak? Do you guys get that questions from your friends or from your family? Ini krisis nggak sih gitu? So of course no one knows, right? Otherwise then economists will be we're not God basically. But I think each time I think about it, I think we'll be okay. So I think we'll be resilient enough. But is it fair? So I think I would like you to get that question in your head. Like, I know orang Indonesia tuh kuat, right? I know of Indonesia's farms are all very resilient, right? They will just mingle around, right? You will get by, right? People will get by. Thankfully we have family, we have support, we have tetangga, we have each other, despite this is very, very hard. But I think people will survive. But is it okay to just survive? So I think that kind of notion is what we need to think about and push, right? Because is it okay to just be resilient? And in this time of like big change, as what Mbak Lily says with AI and generative AI, this is no longer business as usual. So maybe we can no longer just rely on our resilience. And maybe this time, this will not be enough. So I'm going to, maybe kind of give like a little bit more perspective. I know you have listened to 1 hour of lecture. Usually after 1 hour, no one will listen, but just a brief, more questions in our head. Yeah. So I think what I was thinking is just like, okay, this is very uncertain times. It's a changing world. It's many the government, I think, and many part of the the administration has been saying that this is all due to external shocks. But is it all due to external shocks? Yeah. So maybe I will just a little bit recap Indonesia's participations in the global economy, some recent development in trade war, because that really matters now, some updates on Indonesia's economy, and I would like to highlight one big issue that should be one of the way to grow, fixing resource misallocation, and then some policy recommendation. If we would like to do some industrial policy, what should we do? So just a brief overview of, I think Balili have gone over this very beautifully, and I think I'll just mention two big phenomenon that has happened in the past through 3 decades. The first fact is that, as Ibu Melili mentioned, we have grown so much, right? 35-fold in the past 40 years. But this big push of integration, especially a big push of increase in the economic size, is also due to openness. And who is leading this openness is the integration to the world economy by the middle income countries. And this is in the middle income countries is the blue line. And also another phenomenon that is quite distinct in the past 40 years is that as we see increase of globalization, like every country becomes even more integrated to the world economy, we also see substantial decrease of poverty overall in the world. Yeah, so two big phenomenon that we see in the past 40 years. In terms of global value chain participations, here I plot each dot as country year. Yeah, the blue dots are all pre-2000. The yellow dots are all post-2000. So what we can see, what we can draw from this graph is that everyone, no matter level of economy, right? Level of economy is the horizontal axis, increase their participation in global value chain. So everyone is actually participating more and engage more in the global value chain. But this variation, this participation varies a lot. In East economy, we see that the two big leaders are all still Korea and Taiwan. Yeah, they maintain more than 50% of global value chain in the past 20 years at least. Meanwhile, the big dynamics happen in Southeast Asia. So before in the 1990s, the highest participation led by Singapore, that's the dark blue line. And where is Indonesia? Indonesia is the orange line, orange line, like around 30%. After 30 years, what happened is that Singapore still has high global value chain participation, but has decreased in terms of level. But and we see that there is one big top performer, which is Vietnam. This is the red line. It was the bottom two in the global value chain participation. It was just right above Indonesia, but it has become the top performer in Southeast Asia. Meanwhile, Indonesia persistently stay around 40%. Not so much change in terms of global value chain participation. So despite we know that everyone participating more, but not participating as much as not the same. The lessons learned from this is that we see that global value chain has good impact. It is associated with higher growth, higher export, higher income, and higher labor productivity. Nevertheless, we also know that it's not distributed equally. And I think this is one of the defining policy space that we need to take into account is that this openness comes with distributional costs. Yeah, so we need to be able to also not only embrace the benefit, but also how we can spread this benefit to those that are not that are losers in this participations. Just a brief recap on, okay, the past 10 years has been a bit change, right? Not a bit, but a lot of change, actually. So due to the trade war that has started in Trump 1.0, which was maybe 10 years ago, right? Everyone at that time think that, oh, this is going to be temporary. The US will not be able to maintain it. And then the US changed their president to Biden. Nothing changed. Surprise, surprise. Everyone think that it will be run over, but not. And now we're back to Trump 2.0. And the trade war is still there and actually escalate. So what we learned from this new development and increased protection is that first, for in the trade war 1.0 is that the US has diversified their market, yeah, but not to every market, but or export origin, but on top, mostly to their top 20 import trade partners, yeah. The new trade war 2.0 started in Liberation Day last year in April. We see that not only China got really high tariff, but also many other countries. So what we have learned is that there is a faster response in terms of trade, and on top of it, that these differences in tariff actually make sense. So we understand that there is this. The U.S. have been quite successful in pushing all other countries to respond the way they like, right? To also to negotiate bilaterally with them. So ART is not quite a surprise. This is something that the U.S. actually won. However, overall, if there is any trade reallocation, it's still driven by comparative advantage. So this is not something that is like, you know, you diversify to a nonsense or non-competitive partner, but you just move to the less competitive ones. We also see since trade war seems to stay for a while, then we also started to see that investment also reallocate. And what we learned so far, this is a paper by with my co-author, is that regional trade agreement may actually help you to get some investment reallocation to you. We also see some nearshoring, but only in low-tech industry, not necessarily in high-tech. I think many countries would like to get the semiconductor to move to their countries, or the AI boom to get to their countries, but it's not easy. Like nearshoring only happened to low-tech industry, and also political friendshoring. Even if you're maybe far away, but you're political friends with China or US, the investment reallocation really varies by sector. Yeah. Okay, so now some updates on Indonesia's economy. So how is Indonesia doing in terms in the midst of all this chaos? Yeah, we see that, as Ibu Lily also mentioned before, we have moderate economic growth. People may have different opinions on which number to believe or how we should see the current administrative numbers, but more or less it's 5% growth. But I think what is important is that how is this growth translate into people's purchasing power, right? So before pandemic, the growth of the economy closely match the growth of real wage. So people really quite feel the growth also. Yeah. So if the economic growth grows by 5%, real wage grows by 4%. So quite matched to the economic growth. In the pandemic era, real wage shrank a lot. And this is quite apparent. And I think you also felt that back then. Economic growth still have positive growth. And this is something that the government also very proud of. But of course, we can see that real wage contracted by 5%. After pandemic, what we see is that there's a structural change in terms of how economic growth translates into a livelihood. Despite we still have 5% growth, real wage only increased by 2%. So not so much, benefit that the people is feeling, despite the moderate economic growth. And I'm sure you also learned it from Pa Ella and Pa Wisnu. Yeah, they are the expert on this. We also see shrinking middle class. One side of the story is that before, here I plot growth and poverty. With 5% growth, you can decrease poverty by a lot. But now, as you can see, with 5% growth, poverty rate has not declined as fast as before. Yeah, so the elasticity between poverty, growth and poverty has declined. On top of it, we see that the middle class is shrinking, and the top 10 is the top deciles or percentiles are the one that is still growing. Okay. In terms of external relationship, there are two things that I think quite defining after the pandemic. First, there are two dependency. The first one, we have increasing dependency on commodities. The second one, increasing dependency on China. Here on the right-hand side is how we plot exports of Indonesia in terms of products. I forgot which ones. So all the green bars or areas are commodity based. The green bars or areas are all extractive based. And the pink ones are the kind of traditional manufacturing. And what we can see is that the green and the yellow ones are the one that is growing. Likewise, in terms of FDI inflows. So the green lines are all commodity based, the non-commodity based is the yellow ones. And we can see that the growth of FDI inflow is basically also fueled by mostly commodity based sectors. In terms of independence, we do see it both in export side and in import sides. Despite the trade war, we do not see much change to our trade relationship with US. However, we get China has grown to be even more important export destination and import origins. So how does growth translate into jobs? Yeah, what we see is also that it has not been translated into enough good jobs. We see most of the new jobs creation are in low productivity sectors and also in less of full-time jobs. On top of it, just adding to the two presentations before, we see lots of signs of fiscal space that is tightening, and exactly credibility is even more tested. Here I plot, I think this is something that many of you knows and will feel sooner or later. Here is the share of TKD transfer from the central government to the local government that is used directly for operational costs. So as you can see, you know how to read box plot, right? Like, ya kan semuanya ahli data nih ya. So the median is all above 80%. So imagine most of the transfers from the central government to the local governments are used basically just to run day-to-day basis operations. So when the central government cut these transfers around 24% decline, you will feel it. Everyone will feel it sooner or later. Right? I think there's this one viral content from Damkar Jogja, yeah, saying that, oh, we're no longer going to respond to all calls, but we will just respond to only the most important ones, right? So public services will be even more limited, yeah? On top of it, tax revenue collection has shrunk in 2025. So we already know that the fiscal space is limited. It becomes even more limited due to the lower tax revenue. On top of it, almost around 1/5 of tax revenue has to be paid for interest rates. So there is not so much space for any more reallocation. So I think Bu Lily mentioned that we need to reallocate to a better more spending. But yes, that's true. And it's because it's already very limited. Yeah. Now, and I think this is we need to talk about this more and more. When I came to Jogja, I think a month ago, the picture that I went through through the Java, ecosystem looks very different with this month. You can see signs of El Nino everywhere. Ya nggak sih? Kering everywhere, kalau nggak kebakar, which is wait, ini nggak semuanya dibakar. Oke, sebagian sawah dibakar ya. Oke, some lands are actually they burn it, but many places are spots of burn, right? And you can see like the typical Serayu. I think there's some rivers that I used to take pictures from the train, and it used to be like very high, almost no water. And this is just like what, 1 month in, 2 months in from the start of El Nino. So this is very depressing, I think, and we do not have enough, priority on mitigating and adapting to this. So that's the climate change part. And the next side is that we are facing a natural disaster even more commonly. We already know we are very prone to natural disaster, being in Ring of Fire. Yeah. This is something that, you live with it, right? If you come from Jogja, Gempa is like it's quite common. Volcanic eruption, Merapi is there. But having climate change, we know that natural disaster will be even more severe and even more common, right? Like banjir, the flood and landslides in Sumatra will be unfortunately even more common. However, we have not been putting enough priority in terms of mitigating and adapting to these issues. This is I just plot. This is from LPM calculation. The significant and substantial decrease of spending for BNPB, the center that cater for natural disasters, over the past couple of years. So we will see even more disaster, yet with even less resources being prioritized for it. Okay. So the past 1 year also we see more about Prabowonomics, and I think this is worth to talk about because it's quite distinct. Yeah. So when we just start the administration, we already know that okay, this is going to be quite different, despite this is still the same coalition. But there's something. I wrote this paper with Krishna Gupta and Riyandi Laksono for BS for the past survey of recent development. So Prabowonomics leans on 3 things: demand push, macro support, and state expansion. However, there's very small interest in talking about or really discussing on productivity constraints. And if they want to do demand push, many of it is not with proper theory of change, not with proper targeting, that it actually backlash to the idea of having high growth. Okay. Another kind of defining features is that the increase of state footprint. Yeah. So with state dominating even more, not only for fiscal and monetary, but also in terms of competition vis-a-vis private sector. This is including Danantara and SOE expansion. Yeah, we listed some issues about the current setup. We know having Danantara creates scale, yeah, and hopefully flexibility to move with business decisions. But we noted glaring problems that actually can backlash the purpose of Danantara. So for example, the ambiguity in mandates, special assignments that can be driven to political projects, not without discipline, governance overlap, and also consolidation without clear direction to increase productivity. The other one, the other issue is that increasing military and police in civic roles. So this is also very distinct in terms of how you create an institution for the economy, because military and police have extra force, right? So despite if they want to prioritize speed of delivery, there is no discipline in terms of accountability or lack of discipline, and this may have a risk on abuse of power. So in the next 6 minutes or 5 minutes, I will just mention some misallocation that is glaring, and actually any government should start here, right? And even without any industrial policy, there are some space of improvement that are vivid to be handled. The first one is that red tape and bribes are particularly severe for highly productive firms. I think many of you have heard that, we know that firms are not homogeneous, as heterogeneous firms. So you actually want to support the most productive ones, right? And most of the time, the most productive ones are the exporters. But as you can see here, this is from World Bank Enterprise Survey results. Exporters face even higher bribery and incidents compared to the average firms. So you're actually punishing the one that is actually productive. So this is one area that needs to be fixed, and even without costly government intervention or government industrial policy, it's apparent that this should be increasing productivity in aggregates. Second, low human capital investment by the private sectors, even comparing to nearest peers. Yeah. So this is not entirely wrong by the firms, because there must be profits maximizing, right? But it means that this is an outcome coming from, it must be that they're facing very high cost economy, that it's too costly for them to retain human resources and invest on them. Okay. The last one is that, or maybe not the last one, high trade costs. Yeah. So comparing, for example, in terms of average days to clear, yeah, export and imports. Okay, we're not that bad. 6 days or 9 days for importing compared to Philippines with higher days. However, in terms of the cost that it entails, very significant. It entails like 35% of the value of the goods for exporter and 66% for the value of goods of importers, meaning that it's very costly for any exporters and importers to do any trade. Yeah. And last but not least, I think we need to think about more and more about innovations. I think many of you also read the papers on industrial policy that have been going around in the past year, yeah, from Sharif Hasanov, Nancy Birdsall, report on the industrial policy by World Bank. All of them say that if you want to do any industrial policy, you need to improve innovation. Basically, you need to rely on innovative activities, right? Not only by giving out fiscal incentives. That's not enough. You need to give fiscal incentives to those that is actually innovating, create innovation. So what we see is that there is various little activities on innovation that firms are doing right now. And despite that, the government has been giving some fiscal incentive. If you talk to DEN or Kementerian Perindustrian, they always say, oh, we actually have this incentive. But given that we do not talk about it that much, meaning that there's really, really low uptake rate on that incentive. So the incentive is not useful, basically. Okay, so what kind of policy recommendation that we can do? So I'm just going to, all of this, response are all in line with Ibu Lily's 7 imperative shifts. Like basically in terms of response to the external shock is that we should not protect. We should still be engaged in the global market, yeah? And actually we should take it as an opportunity for diversifications. And thinking about the distributional impact, then we need to think about more on compensation schemes. So if you want to push any export-oriented sectors, you also need to think about those that are lagging. So these are some focus on complementary policies, but I'm going to skip this one. So the last one, even if we want to push for 8% growth the way the current government would like to push, then you need to have the right industrial policies, right? First, this policy should address distortions. Sorry, typo. And instead of creating new distortions, it should also go hand in hand with policy that support enablers sectors. And last but not least, it should foster competitiveness. I just have a discussion with Ibu Lily, Paelan, and Wisnu today. Okay, if Prabowonomics would like to be like China, it's also not look like in China. In China, they have centralization, but they push for competition, right? The firms in the domestic market, they still compete. The markets are all contestable. But here it seems that they want to limit competition and make the market lack of contestability, with the government coming in as the sole power. So this is quite is actually a boomerang to the purpose of having industrial policy itself, which is promoting improving productivity through competition. If you read Agion and all their papers talking about innovation, it's basically you also have to have innovation competition side by side if you want to push for innovations. And last but not least, and I think on top of having this competition and carrot and stick in giving out support, it has to end, right? Industrial policy need to have an exit strategy, and they need to have a strategy on when this will end. Otherwise, then all the political rent seeking will just come in and out, trying to get a little bit of economic rent for their own. Yeah, so in order for the private sectors and also the public sectors to have discipline, then we need to, anytime we have industrial policy, we also have to have the roadmap for it to end. I'll stop there. Happy to discuss about this further. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rizky, for your very insightful presentation. And now I may briefly highlight some key takeaways from today's presentations. Looking at the global trade and investment landscape, navigating external shocks and supply chain alignments requires more than just relying on raw natural resources. The key priority must be eliminating domestic resource misallocations, reducing high trade and logistic costs, and design a targeted. And now we will move on to our question and answer sessions. We will invite participants to ask questions to our speakers. If you have a questions, please raise your hand and I will call on you. Once you have the microphone, please briefly introduce yourself by mentioning your name and affiliations, and then proceed with your questions. We will have approximately 30 minutes for the question and answer session, so I kindly encourage everyone to keep the questions. All right, let's begin. Any questions? Okay, one. Okay. Okay. Okay, first one is Rizky. Okay, please.
Oke, berdiri kah atau duduk? Stand up. Okay, my name is Muhammad Rizky. I'm from MEP UGM, ya, mahasiswa. As Miss Lily mentioned before, the rating is still stuck at BBB, and we know our stock market is in free fall. I think it's because many foreign investors are pulling out. The concern is because shifting regulation, legal uncertainty, and complex bureaucracy. If that really were the bottleneck, should not institutional reform be prioritized over fiscal incentive in order to lift the rating?
Okay, thank you, Rizky, for the questions. Okay, so let's move on to the second participant who made to ask. The one who wore brown batik please. Oh yeah. Okay. Okay, you may stand up, please.
Okay, thank you. My name is Galih Aga. I'm from MEP FEB UGM. I have one question related to the topic, especially from Dr. Lily. My question is, Indonesia have large domestic market, yeah, and great natural resources. But the problem is, if we compare with several ASEAN countries, the ratio from FDI to GDP is relative low. Is it the main problem is related to regulation, productivity, or institutional quality, or any problem? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kak Gali. Okay, so next, who want to ask? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so in the first termin, we have three people who made to ask. Okay, so please.
Okay, my name is Agung Iman Setiawan. I'm master student of development economics. I will ask to Mr. Anand. Presentation, slide 17. The second quarter growth of 5.29% was driven by GFCF at 15.97%, while budget capital spending is only 14% of APBN. That implies development financing is migrating to BUMN and bank balance sheets. As OJK stress testing integrate, but an SBN yield shock, NPSN credit concentration, is creative financing eliminating fiscal risk, or merely relocating it into the financial sector? Thank you, sir.
Okay, so thank you so much for everyone who have to ask. So please, the speakers who want to answer the questions. Okay.
Thank you. So, I mean, if we see the quality of questions, I'm just very proud to be part of discussions. Thank you so much for raising those questions. I think those are very, very important issues. And I'm very, very glad that you raised those very important issues. For Mas Rizky, one of the key issue is that incentive or any kind of incentive, investment incentive, export incentive, in the overall, like Ibu Rizky mentions, overall industrial policy, it may attract up to a certain level. But the key factors to attract investments are three things. One is on the certainty. Investors is about investments 20, 30 years from now. If the policy law regulations keep changing, who wants to come to Indonesia? So law regulations and certainty is number one priority, because all kind of uncertainties will be translated into costs for businesses. The second factors is on energy supplies as well as infrastructure, because energy supplies, I mean, it really ensures on the productions as well as the certainty in businesses, right? So this kind of two issues on energy supply infrastructures are very important for businesses. The third one is human capital. But human capital is something that I think Indonesia is not lacking behind. We have talents, we have skills. It's just like the government has not working enough to do on the first two key sectors. That's create kind of burdens for the potentials of Indonesia to attract investments. So in addressing your questions, whether investments incentive will gonna attract investments, it may work, but only affecting very little. And usually investment incentives are only over for very large amount of investments, pioneer. So there are certain criteria which I don't think it will not gonna lift the overall investments environment, like the environment, like the overall environment landscapes of investments in Indonesia. Thank you. For the second question from Mas Gali, what will be the problem of low ratio of FDI to GDP? I think it's also related to the first questions. Again, in terms of the ratio, so I think the issue with Indonesia is not only Indonesia is having the low ratio of FDI to GDP, but the trend has been declining, particularly for the last 2 years. And if we see like investors have been pulling out its FDI as well as in investments in portfolio, the key, again, I think for the last 2 years is very clear. Government regulations, government interventions, as other speakers mentioned, in terms of state-owned enterprises, the state dominance is really worrying investments because like investors want to have kind of conducive investment landscape and to have kind of a good competitions, fair competitions. Think about if the government is playing roles in so many sectors, so many aspects of life, I think it's not only gonna be a burden for investors. Particularly, I'm really worried now. It's particularly for domestic investors, for small medium enterprises, because small medium enterprises will gonna be the ones who will be affected directly, as mostly with government dominant in the market. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lily. And Dr. Rizky, do you want to answer? Oh, okay. Okay, so let us move on to the final questions from Mas Imam. Dr. Anung, please.
Okay, while waiting for the relevant slide, could you please repeat again your questions, please? Slide 17. 17.
Yes,
Is it that one? Okay.
Yes. In this slide, the second quarter growth,
Second quarter.
yes, 5.29% was driven by GFCF at 15.97%.
Oh, 6 point. Okay.
Well, budget capital spending is only 15% of APBN. Iya, pertanyaannya mungkin ini Pak, apakah stres tes OJK sudah menangkap kombinasi shock yield SPN plus konsentrasi exposure ke PSN ini? Apakah creative financing ini menghilangkan risiko fiskal atau hanya memindahkan ke sektor keuangan?
Okay, great. So basically, OJK conduct the regular stress testing, but mostly the impact of this fiscal movement into the financial institutions. Bank Indonesia does this usually, not the OJK, but yeah, I feel there's something, Bulili, your sense of number, whether this is the inconsistency and the, yes, Bulili said that this is just about number, whether it come from only PPS knows about it. So this is the outcome. But yes, your sense number is very good. the same as us, as Pulili said as well. But Pulili, you're economist. I think you can explain. I'm an accountant. Could you please respond this very?
Well, I think like first things first, the key driver for the second quarter, 5.29%, is largely contributed by government expenditures. Government expenditure increased 15.2% in this quarter, while exports only increased like 4%, consumptions only increased 5%, investments only increased 6%. So the key driver of the second quarters is coming from government expenditure. So that's one of the key alarming issues. While at the same time, we need to keep in mind that there has been a huge stagnant or delay, as Ibu Kiki mentions, on the government transfers to local governments. And that creates a really stagnancy, not only in the deliverables, but also delivery services, as well as all the welfares of government the government servant in the local governments. And it will create the stagnant in the multiplier effects of expenditures at the local markets, basically across regions in Indonesia. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Bu Lily. But the other factor that in the second quarter of 2026, the loan expansion from the banks probably has become the stimulus, even though not instantly contribute to this growth. If you look at the 5.29 is basically, it's not increasing as compared to the first quarter. Yeah. So there is a lack of a gap, basically, from the contributions of the financial sector to the GDP growth. If the bank's expansion, which is 10 to 12% in second quarter, I think we will see the result of this multiplier or added value in the second quarter or the second semester by the end of this. But so far, yeah, the stimulus of the GDP especially comes from two sides, from private or household, and then from the government expansion. And this time, in the second quarter, yes, really correct. I just checked from the PPS that the government expansion in the second quarter of is quite dominant to drive this one. But there is a bit anomaly when the government pushing the mining, yeah, and to enhance capability of the mining to support the government revenue. But you can see that the mining in second quarter of 2026 is a minus. Why there is a anomaly that the mining and quarrying is a negative. Yeah, the growth. Yeah.
So if you read the news and if you take a look at the data, basically the mining sectors in Indonesia lately rely on nickel and coal. And nickel has been growing for the last 3 years, but now nickel industries has been experiencing decline, both in terms of investments as well as outputs and exports. One of the issues is that Chinese investors, because nickel industries in Indonesia has been largely dominated by Chinese investors. One of the reasons is that Chinese investor has been starting to take out their money from Indonesia. I mean, if you have seen the news of this kind of the complaint from China Chamber of Commerce about the regulations in Indonesia, that one of the issue. The second issue is that I think most of economists have already alarmed the government when the government invests a lot in nickel, because at the global level, if we see nickel and lithium, this is something all economists have already warned. The demand for nickel have been declining from 60% in 2019 to only 25-30% by 2030 because it will be replaced by lithium. So the trend of nickel will be declining, while at the same time the demand for lithium will be increasing, replacing nickel. So this is something that economists have already warned the government of Indonesia for not too much relying on the nickel industries. And the cost of nickel industry expansions on the environments, on agriculture, on fisheries have been so massive that even might not be able to compensate compared to the increase of investments as well as the GDP growth that Indonesia had experiences for the last 3 years. So one of the reasons is those two things, declining investments as well as declining in outputs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lily and Dr. Anung, for the answer. Okay, so let's open the last termin of the question and answer sessions. Any questions? Okay, so 1, 2, okay. Oh, okay. Okay, so the first one is the first lady. You may ask a questions, please.
Thank you so much. I'm Christina Chirwa from MAPUGM. My question is directed towards Boriski. So on one of your slides, you were talking about trade restrictions, how they are bad for Indonesia at the moment. So backstory. Where I come from Malawi in Southern Africa. There was a time where we never really had restrictions, especially on exports. Imports. So you just buy anything online with just things with our cards. And as I speak right now, we're having forex issues as a country in general because of that. And now they're trying to bring in the trade restrictions. So don't you think maybe Indonesia is trying not to reach to that stage where things get really bad, that the money is just going outside? They're trying to keep the money within the country. And if it's a bad thing, how best can they reach, a place where both sides balance the thing? Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Miss Christina, for the questions. And let's move on to the second participant who might to ask. Okay, so the girl who wear glasses. Okay, please.
Thank you for the presentation, Bapak dan Ibu. I'm Maita from MEP UGM, and I'm just starting my first semester in MEP. And Maita, yes. So I just want to ask a question, but it is related to my work in coordinating Ministry of Economic Affairs in Indonesia. So I agree about the Bu Aulia or Bu Rizky said before that we have to create the innovative ways, not only through the technology, but I think it is important to us to create the innovative ways through the alternative financing to develop the infrastructure in Indonesia. So it is related with my work in coordinating Ministry of Economic Affairs. But we just have the main problem from the central government related about this implementation of the policy, and it is because about that central government wants to create the create the development of the infrastructure in the short term, in their term of the kepala daerah. I think it is this from the central government in the 5 years, and it is so difficult to us to implement this policy in regarding the alternative financing. So my question is simple. So how can we exchange this mindset, and where should we start to implement this alternative financing to create or to make the development of the Indonesia through the infrastructure? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miss Mita, for the questions. And the last one, who want to ask? Okay, so please, you may ask. Yes, yes. Mas Wisnu? Yeah. Oh. Okay.
Well, thank you. I am Wisnu Saya from MEP UGM. I will ask Wisnu, yes. I will ask question to Pak Anung. Yeah. The question is Indonesia tough enough to face another vulnerability period like this? Because maybe today we face Hormuz Strait conflict, but tomorrow we face another conflict. So, is Indonesia can do in the short term, medium term, or long term to improve the policy, or maybe we cut the mandatory spending, reduce from 72%, so we have a more fiscal cap, so we can make fiscal healthier, or we can optimize some prioritizing program like the MP or MBK. So what we can do? That's it, sir.
Okay, so thank you for the question. So as requested, so the last one who made to ask, is there anyone who wants to ask? Okay. Okay, so please.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vania. I'm from MFP, matriculation class. Actually, academy is one new thing for me because previously I'm from petroleum engineering. So academy is quite something that really interesting. And one thing that caught my eyes is from a presentation from Mr. Anung, was about the testing resilience. So actually, I really wonder like how, from OJK perspective, what is the concrete real action that OJK do to face the poly crisis? Well, I mean, like not just like okay, give us strength and then the eight if I'm not mistaken, there are 8 points that you have presented just now, but I wonder what is the real work from OJK to Indonesia adapt to the poly crisis, and then does deeper financial market for development necessarily make Indonesia more resilient, or is it make it could be like makes Indonesia more vulnerable through the global shocks? I think that's all. So there's a 2 point of from my questions. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much. Let's move on to the answer sessions. The first question is from Miss Christina. Please, Dr. Rizky, you may answer the questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Christina, for the questions. All trade economists got these questions all the time, so don't worry. So the question is about maybe the protection is to actually promote domestic industries, right? Basic like limiting import maybe is a way to promote domestic industries. That's a good point, and I think there is merit in some way of protecting domestic industries, especially against unfair trade practices. So, but however, if we look at Indonesia's trade profile, most of imports for Indonesia's imports are capital goods. So these are all used to create more goods, right? So even if we want to export more, we need some imports. And due to the kind of the characteristic of production network in this region in Asia, especially, this close relation between imports and exports activity are very high. So many exporters actually need some imports. So limiting imports can be also harmful if done recklessly. So if I may say that. On top of it, we also see recently we should not be naive to that. There are some allegation on unfair practices from dumping, for example. So other countries dumping many of their exports to third countries because they cannot access US. So that's something that we need to take into account if it's happening. And I think we have in place safeguards that are that can be used. So, however, yeah, the government needs to be agile in understanding which one is, protecting per se and protecting actually from unfair practices. So I think that's one. Let me just answer the other that goes to me. So Mita, yeah, on innovation. So you're asking, your ministry if it's an easy. I usually go if it's an easy problem, we already know the solutions. If it's not happening yet, meaning that we do not know the solution yet. But I think this is something that is good to discuss all the time, right? Because it's not an easy questions. The problem in these issues about alternative financing is that how can we create a governance or tata kelola that can bypass political cycle, right? That's always the problem, not only on infrastructure, but also on many other spending, right? So I think this is something that we still struggle in knowing what is the guardrails. We unfortunately we see it from the higher political will that they even kind of utilize their political cycle to do the way you mentioned, right? I want to have legacy now, right? In this 5 years, I have to get a statue on my own, a port, right? I mean, it's quite common everywhere you go. I come from Tapanuli Selatan. Every bupati wants to have legacy, whatever legacy they think. But I think it's a problem of, political dynamics also to create the, real governance in bypassing this, political cycle constraints. But if we, I think there are two issues that are quite, apparent now. One, not only about alternative financing on infrastructure, but also on clean energy. So one side of the, I think if, Ministry of Economic Cooperation like to have, low hanging fruits and when, right? Low hanging fruits to di mana, ya kan? I think energy is one side of the, opportunity that we should see, because one side we need to push for industrializations and growth, and the other side you need to commit to net zero emission targets. So energy is one way to do it, and alternative financing is part of it, right? Because you want to be able to finance, cleaner energy power and sectors, while start to limit coal, right? So I think in this issue, setting the carbon price right is the way to go. And if that happens, then I think the governance will follow. However, letting the coal, sector to also, finally accept they need to be more expensive is a way, it's I understand it's not easy. So I not only I think one side, okay, so the second one, of course, in energy is on PLN. So the biggest part of it is, how we put so again, it's the institutions, right? So how we would like to have, the right governance to take into account longer term and medium term issues, not only 5-year cycles. And one last thing about that also relate to the firm innovation practices, because they do not see, the infrastructure side, as Ibu Lily said, to be, certain and for medium and longer term business climate. So more push from, I think we should be demanding that, right? Like the firms also need to keep demanding, more certainty, and also affirmative policy commitment for a longer term and medium term, projects and program. Is it all for my homework? I think yes. Silakan.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, there are two questions that I really like these questions. It's very straightforward, and that describe that you worry about this economy. It's good. We have to worry about it.
if your business as usual in the current conditions, means that you are losing sense of a crisis. We have been through many crises, experienced many crises. The worst crisis is 1997, 98. Yeah. I was happy. I was in UK at the time. So my salary is in pounds, from 5,000 to 28,000. And then I'm happy for that. But yes, 80% of final sector, that's a very good lesson. Yeah. And ironically, 80% of financial sector collapsed in that time. Yeah. And ironically, that in the last 10 years before that, before the crisis, Indonesia, as dinobatkan as an Asian tiger. Be careful with that title, basically. So from that, and then Indonesia financial system to be reformed by Bank Indonesia at that time, to be more capitalized. But and then there is a euphoria in the advanced economies. Have you had any Glass-Steagall Act? From the Great Depressions in 1933, the transmission of the crisis Great Depression from the capital market because of the implementations of universal banking, which, unify between commercial bank and investment banking. Yeah. And then since that crisis, through the Glass-Steagall Act, US and then do not forbid the commercial bank to be as investment banking. So until 1999, yeah, and then Bail and Groom Act, and then revoke that kind of act, and then allow the banks and financial institution to be universal banking. Not until 10 years, and the global financial crisis in 2008, 2009, the the largest financial institution in the world, and then collapse. The all AAA banks, starting by Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, and then Citicorp, that's collapse. And during that global financial crisis, only 3 countries that recorded positive economic growth: Indonesia, Australia, and one of the countries I forget about it. This is a very good lesson learned. And before the global crisis, 2005, there is a mini crisis about the exchange rate. Yeah. And so since to 1997, 1998, Bank Indonesia, and it continued by the OJK, on regular basis, we do the stress test. And I was in banking supervision at that time. Yeah. And we conduct the forward-looking approach. Yeah. What if scenario? And then start increasing the number of capital of financial institution. We offer oversight like 34,000 trillions rupiah. In 78%, bank dominate 78% of the financial institution share on solo basis. And conglomerations, bank acquire like 85%. So we have to only focus on the banking industry. When I was in a banking regulations, I start increasing the minimum level of capital from only 100 billion rupiah into 3 trillions. Yeah. And this is a blessing in disguise. It was in 2019. And then in the early 2020, yeah, it is unprecedented and unexpected transmission of crisis. Usually crisis is marked by the, transmission is from monetary problems, financial institutions, and then banking crisis, etc. But every crisis is a new crisis. So 2020 is very, start not from the economic factor, but from the health virus, with transmission into social, economic, and then the banking sector. Yeah, and then
in DPNP banking regulations and then issue the relaxations. You can imagine thousands, trillions banking loan is discrepancy, impaired, while the total of the bank's capital only 1,200 trillions. So the bank is technically collapsed at that time if we don't issue the relaxations policy. It's very stressful. I only, sleep probably 2 hours, 3 hours in a 1 year, really. Yeah, we think about it. And at that time, because the policy of lockdown, and then there is a group pressure from the customer. Hey, bank, my money is there. I cannot, go to the banks or even using the ATM. So whatever the economic transaction has to be done, and you have to finish up with it. So the concept of closed banking system means that if you need bank transaction, you have to go to the banks, and then banks start opening themselves, and then start, come into your room, yeah, in your bed, and then you can use the transaction from the smartphone. So this is the bank branch now move into the financial inclusions increasing significantly, but banks literacy become, yeah. And then back to what is the impact of the crisis? So increasing a capital, minimum capital, is a blessing in disguise to face the COVID and after effect of the COVID. Yeah, that's become, you see now the banks become more resilient because the capital is underlying to absorb any risk, including the economic volatility. But you have to remember, financial institution like a fish in the pond. The big one, so the financial healthy or fish healthy is very much depend on the quality of the water. So the water is macroeconomic condition. Yeah, sooner or later, I love koi. Yeah, so the best way to make a koi in a healthy condition is maintaining the water. So whatever we can do to the financial institution, if the macro level, macro condition is not conducive, then financial institution cannot withstand with that. Yes, you're right. Cukup kritis, but the tricky questions. Apakah OJK and how do you think about the MPK, KDMP? Yes. I have to say, as a government, is working in the government official. Yeah, I have to, put my feet at the, I have to say that MPK, Kopdas, is a good policy, but need to be revisited. Probably revisited significantly or drastically. Yeah, like a Lily proposed that has to be targeted into who really need it, because that's a big number. By absorbing all the government state budget into that program, then where's the infrastructure? You can see the paradox. Everything looks good. I have to say as well, I monitor every day that the bank's indicator is a good pace. Still, yeah. But NPL still manage in managed level. But banks never collapse overnight because of bad loan. Bad loan like cholesterol. Ya, Pak Amirullah itu mungkin kolesterolnya tinggi, tapi sehat-sehat aja. But if you have liquidity problems, that's like stroke. Yeah, you look very healthy today, but if there is a liquidity problems, tomorrow they all collapse. 1997, 1999, 1998. Economic tiger. And then the channel of the transmission of the overseas liquidity come to the banks. Banks over liquid. But what happened then? Ya, ada yang namanya George Soros. Tahu this fragility. George Soros itu dari orang Jawa asli. Nama aslinya itu Joko Suroso. George Soros, ya. To be careful. he's still around. Now, if this crisis prolongs, how can the financial institution can, still resilience facing that problems? We'll see. But we have applied the expected credit loss by PSAK 109, ya 109 IFRS 9, ya. That's refine the old reserve requirement from incurred loss into expected credit loss. Bank now start calculated on that. So that's become the buffer, the cushion. Why global financial crisis happened? Because the provisions for bad loan for the bank is not enough. It's too little and too late. But now with expected credit loss, bank anticipated the potential problems with their loan. Yeah, hopefully we all expect that financial institution will stay healthy despite any pressure from that's macro level. Ya, semoga ikannya tetap sehat. And the water still in meskipun despite the water agak butek lah gitu ya. Gitu. Bahasa Inggrisnya nggak ada butek gitu. Oke, kira-kira itu ya, Mas. And then the ladies over there. Thank you. That's very straightforward questions, but I love it.
Okay, so thank you very much for all the questions and the engaging discussions. And once again, let's give a round of applause to our speakers, Dr. Lily, Dr. Rizky, and Dr. Anung for their insightful presentations. As we come to an end of these sessions, allow me to briefly connect the dots and summarize the core takeaways from our presentations today. First, on the global front, geopolitical conflicts and supply chains shock under a new world disorder pose serve threats, while domestic pressure like the industrialization demand urgent attentions. The second, navigating external shocks requires moving beyond a raw resource by eliminating domestic misallocations and implementing smart industrial policies. Finally, bringing the focus to our internal structure, we recognize that overcoming long-term economic stagnations on both tax and fiscal reforms. Once again, thank you so much, Dr. Lily, Dr. Rizky, and Dr. Anung for being with us today. And thank you for all the participants for your active engagement. I hope today's discussion has given us a new perspective to reflect on, perhaps even more importantly. That brings us to the end of the International Graduate Student Conference on Economic Development. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you enjoy the rest of IGETCO 2026. I'm Adinda Salshabila, and I will hand the next session to our Master of Ceremony. Have a great day, everyone.
Please, Dr. Anung, Dr. Lily, and Ms. Rizky stay there because we will move to the next session. Thank you, Ms. Salsa, for the leading of today's seminar as a moderator. Please, ladies and gentlemen, now we would like to give tokens of appreciation for speakers who have shared their insight for today's seminar. We would like to invite Mr. Amir to come forward to give the souvenirs for the speakers. First, for Dr. Anung Herlianto, please look at, please.
Dr. Anung, thank you for this. I think we have a presentation for you. Oh, great. Okay, this is Ketua Pusat, right? Okay.
Please look at the camera.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, yeah.
Yes, please. 3, 2. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for Dr. Anung Herlianto. And the second for Dr. Lily Yan Ying.
Dr. Lily Yan Ying, this for you.
Okay. Please look at the camera.
Oh, yeah.
3, 2, 1. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Lily Yang Ing. And the third for Mr. Rizky Nauli Siregar.
I see, Doctor. This is for you.
Terima kasih, bagus banget, Pak. Makasih banget.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Terima kasih.
Give applause for our three keynote speakers. Let us give. Oh, yeah. Thank you for Mr. Amir. And before we move to the next session, we will now proceed to the photo session. For all participants, we would like this photo session. Kindly follow the instruction from our documentation team.
Mungkin ya.
Everybody please move a little bit toward the center because the frame is not enough.
Everyone, please move to the center of the room.
Please move toward the center, please. Okay. Three, two, one. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more. 3, 2, 1. Like this.
For all the presenters, participants on the and the speaker, please sit back to your seat. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for all participants and the speakers. Please may be seated. Please,
For all the participant and presenter, please sit back to your seat because the event isn't haven't ended yet. So please follow all the orders from the master of ceremony. Thank you.
ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed to the invite to all presenters to come forward to give the certificate. To all participants, please come forward to give the certificate for the final presentation. Mr. Hafifuddin, Mr. Hafifuddin may kindly to come forward to give the presenter certificate.
Okay, for together's session. Okay, give them applause for the all presenters who joined the call for paper presentation. And ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed to the awarding session of IGETCOT 2026. This session recognizes and celebrates the presenters who have taken part of the call for paper presentation. And now the moment we have been waiting for has arrived. It is our pleasure to announce the winners of the call for paper presentation. For the third winner is Muhammad Robi Setiawan. Please come forward to the give them applause for Muhammad Robi Setiawan. Okay, for the second winner. For the second winner is congratulations to Wisnu Krisner Cahya. Please come forward to give the appreciation. And now, the first winner for call for paper presentation IGETCOT 2026 is Rani Destia Wahyuningsi. We would like to invite Mr. Amirullah kindly come forward to give the gift for the winner and photo session. Congratulations. Second winner is Mas Vishnu. Second winner. First winner. Okay, thank you for Mr. Amir and congratulations our winner to please may be seated. Ito bareng oh. Okay, thank you very much and congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now arrived at the end of IGETCOT 2026. It has been a great pleasure to have all of you with us today. On behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to express our sincere gratitude to all participants and everyone who have contributed to the success of today's event. I hope that our discussion today will inspire further collaboration and contribute to understanding development economics. Thank you for your valuable time, participants, and enthusiasm in today's session. Once again, congratulations to all presenters and winners, and thank you for being part of IGETCOT 2026. We wish you all a safe journey home and always success in your academic and professional research. Thank you, and we look forward to see you again at the future IGETCOT events. Good evening and have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. For all the participants who asked a question, who delivered a question, please come forward to receive a gift from the committee as a participation gift. Everyone, for all the participants who asked a question or delivered a question, please come forward to receive a participation gift from us as an appreciation. Thank you. Oh, okay.
Thank you guys for coming.
Participant who has been delivered a question, thank you. Please come forward to receive a participation gift from the committee. Come. Okay, so what's your name, sister? What? Mita. Oh, Mita. So you.
For the questioners, please take your souvenirs in front of you.
Oh, sir. What's your name, sir? Oh, matriculasi, right? Okay, great. Oh, hi, brother, for you. Okay.
Selamat dapat gelas cantik
Chris, that's
dari
what.
MEP. Silakan foto booth, foto booth, foto. Ini bisa ada 3 lagi. Saya semuanya Mbak. Pas. Gini. Saya tanya. Ya ambil. Mari. Nggak boleh. Okay. Hello, for all committee. We have a meeting. We have evaluation meetings. So please come forward. Come forward. So I don't think this is one of the best inventory. Equipment. Where are you? Please help me. This is not my job. Where is Ray? For Windows, please call him to here in front of the Jerome Hall as soon as possible. Pak, nanti zoomnya saya serahkan ke Pak Dayat ya, recordnya. Oh, oke. Udah masuk kan berarti Pak ya? Udah masuk ke sana recordingnya berarti. Berarti saya close aja ya? Enggak, ini tadi saya close, terus ngerekam juga. Guys, please. Silakan mau foto-foto. It sounds look. I think you will need to here. Take a picture there. Cheers.
Committee.
Committee, please.